This is Billie Jo Wing, and I am presenting the lesson Writing an Introductory Paragraph. This is a 7th grade language arts lesson. The standards in this lesson are that students will learn to write an introductory paragraph. The first standard is the Common Core State Standard for Writing 7-2A. Introduce a topic clearly, previewing what is to follow. Organize ideas, concepts, and information using strategies such as definition, classification, comparison-contrast, and cause-effect. The second standard is the Common Core State Standard for Writing 7.4. Produce clear and coherent writing in which the development, organization, and style are appropriate to task, purpose, and audience. The NETSP standard included is 2A. Design or adapt relevant learning experiences that incorporate digital tools and resources to promote student learning and creativity. The instructional objective is, using a list of attention-getting techniques, the student will evaluate an inadequate example introduction and rewrite it, composing a superior introductory paragraph which contains both an attention-getting technique and a thesis statement which previews 3 possible points of an essay. Preparation and participation. Teacher preparation will include gathering student writing samples with weak introductions. This can be from previous years. You will need to create an interactive whiteboard presentation, which will allow for the practice of writing thesis statements and recognizing attention getters. You will need to print copies of the Glossary of Good Beginnings handout, and you can find that at the website www.ttms.org. Student participation will occur through discussion. They will need to discuss their likes and dislikes in the writing examples we share in class. Students will need to respond and share by sorting and writing answers on the interactive whiteboard as we go through the practice activities. And finally, students will need to write a revised introduction paragraph. Adaptations for special learners. Learning disabled students may require one-on-one teacher and/or para support to complete the writing assignment portion of this lesson. They may also need assistive technologies to help them to write, whether that's simply needing a computer to type or other technologies to make that possible. ELL students, they will have the following adaptations. Cooperative learning will allow them to work with mixed groups so that there are students of different language abilities that can help each other out so that they understand the instructions and expectations of the assignment. Adaptation for gifted students include choice ranging from simple to challenging options as they choose different techniques to get attention in their essay. And they may also choose another topic to write on. If they finish before their classmates, they can go back and perhaps rewrite a piece of their own work to practice the skills that we've learned. Assessment. Informal assessment, I will check for student understanding of the concepts of an attention getter and a thesis statement through class responses. Formative assessment. Students will need to produce a paragraph with both an attention getter and a thesis statement to meet this learning objective. And then finally, a summative assessment. This lesson is part of a larger unit on writing an expository essay, in which students will be assessed on their ability to synthesize this knowledge with that of other parts of an essay to produce a well-developed and organized piece of writing. Variations may include adjusting the topic difficulty and the level of support that you provide as the students complete the assignment. First off, I start off with a mini lesson. Every day before we begin writing, I start with a grammar warm-up, and I do that through a great resource called Grammar Rules. It's an interdisciplinary social studies reading selection that has a passage for each day, and it gives daily editing practice. Practice with spelling, punctuation, capitalization, and agreement, some of those areas that middle schoolers most need to work on, and so we spend about 10 minutes on that each day. Students complete the work first individually in their packets, from a rule displayed up on the smartboard, and then we combine the knowledge of all the students together up on the smartboard so that together as a class we can try to make all of the corrections. And this is great editing practice for the students, so when it comes time to peer edit each other's work, they're already very comfortable with this. When it's time for instruction, we start with some reading and discussion. Use the projector to share and read student writing examples with poor introductions. These would be things like, in this paper I am going to talk about, or hi, my name is and I'm going to tell you, or I am writing about. Students should then discuss what they liked or didn't like about these introduction paragraphs. Most students will identify that it was easy to tell what the paper was about, but that it got boring after you read several examples that all started in that same way. Then we'll move on to note-taking and practice. On the smartboard, you'll present definitions for attention getter and thesis statement. We use Cornell notes, and so the students are familiar with using that to keep notes in their notebook. We'll also use the smartboard to get students practicing. Have individual students highlight the parts of an example introductory paragraph on the smartboard. Write practice thesis statements from body paragraph main ideas as a class, and have students write thesis statements independently and volunteer to share those up on the whiteboard. I would show an example of this on here, but I don't have the smartboard notebook software that I use on this particular computer. Then we'll move on to reading and discussion. Project, hand out, read, and discuss examples from the Glossary of Good Beginnings from the Writing Strategy Guide found at the www.ttms.com, I'm sorry, that should be .org website that I'd mentioned. And it would look something like this. It starts off with some very simple ways to start a paper, from using descriptions, sounds, exclamations, questions, to moving on to some very complex ways to do this. So as I said, it gives some choice for your more basic students to start out with over here, and your gifted students can move on to try some more challenging ways to start their paper. And this is a great tool for them to keep in their notebooks, because one of the most common questions you'll hear the kids ask is, how do I start my paper, or how do I get started? And so they've always got this to look back to for some ideas. Then we'll move on to the actual writing. Students should now apply their knowledge of attention getters and thesis statements to rewrite a poor introduction from the first day. Ask students to identify the attention-getting technique they chose and to underline their three-pronged thesis statement in their writing sample. Then volunteers can share their results either orally, reading them, or by projecting them up on the board for the class to read. Gifted students may also use extra time to rewrite an introduction from their own writing pre-test from the beginning of the year. In summary, students will have continued practice with this skill throughout the year. This lesson in composing an introductory paragraph is part of a larger unit on organizing a 5-paragraph essay. So students will be assessed again when they complete their first full essay on that introduction that they write at the beginning of that. Students will continue to use this skill as they explore writing for different purposes throughout the year. And again, here are a couple of the resources I mentioned in my presentation. Grammar Rules by Eric Ortman is a great way to get kids involved in grammar up on the smartboard. They like it a lot more than using the grammar textbooks. And then the Glossary of Good Beginnings is part of the Writing Strategy Guide from the Teaching That Makes Sense website, and it's got a lot of other great resources for writing teachers online at that site.